What happens when heroes become extinct in New York? Will an elderly Spider-Man come out of retirement for one final stand? Our story begins in a city controlled by a military state and policed with a totalitarian force called RAIN. They teach kids about the one thing that will remain constant in their lives: pain. In this dystopian world, an old man working in a floral shop gets shouted at by his boss. Parker! Peter Parker, old, frail, and taking whatever job he can get, just messed up another wedding's flower order. Parker, you are not gonna screw up again. Do you know how I know that? Because you're fired! Peter steals a couple flowers and walks home in the rain. No money, no job, no dignity. Just like old times. Suddenly, a teenager on the street plows into Peter, knocking him to the ground. Another man, a RAIN officer, tackles the kid, trampling the white flowers Peter had just stolen. The RAIN officer wrestles the kid, as Peter's mind flashes back to old times, back when he could have stopped the criminal who killed his Uncle Ben, and learned firsthand that with great power comes great responsibility. Peter watches on as another RAIN officer comes into the fight, beating the kid. Peter can't just sit and watch. He tries to stop the assailants, but takes an elbow to the nose. Peter collapses on the ground, blood gushing from his nose. They say old bones break easier, that the pain is less. They're half right. The two RAIN officers drag the kid away as a young girl emerges from the shadows. You let them take him? How could you? Peter turns, his eyes filled with blood and shame. There's no one out there to help us. No one to save us. No one. As Peter shuffles home, we cut to a TV screen where a news anchor is celebrating the anniversary of the city's dictatorship. It's time to break out the balloons and confetti. With an unprecedented decade free from superpowered crime, the city is ready to celebrate its anniversary of independence. The controversial Mayor Waters will soon release a new piece of technology, the Web. It's a massive dome of energy that will surround the entire city. Hailed by the people of this city as its greatest defender, Mayor Waters is a true American hero. At that moment, Mayor Waters has a very important dinner guest, Wilson Fisk. He's unrecognizable, starved so drastically that the skin is rolling off his body. Fisk is a vegetable. How long has it been since he's tasted solid food? 10 years, sir. That's a long time. Waters leans in toward Fisk, setting a steak in front of him. You find the strength to reach the fork, and I'll cut it for you. Fisk groans as he tries to muster up the strength, but he can't. Waters is torturing the former kingpin of crime. Drool starts to drizzle down Fisk's cheek. Waters wipes it off with a napkin. Pavlov would be proud. Waters turns away, telling his men to send Fisk back to the vault. Later that night, Peter gets home after the beating he just took. He sets the battered flowers into a vase. I brought flowers, like I promised. Peter sits at the table and pokes at his soup. His brow furrows and he shouts, "Say something!" The redhead sitting across from him says nothing. She doesn't move, like she's not even there. I'm sorry. That night, Peter's awakened by a kiss from that same redhead, Mary Jane, the love of his life. I had this dream. You were gone. I was a lonely old man. She pulls me in, and for the first time in 10 years, I taste sunshine. But just that quickly, it's gone. It was a dream. Peter wakes up to an empty bed like he does every day since Mary Jane died. She's gone. Now, he's just a lonely old widower. Peter walks to the front door to confront whoever just woke him from his slumber. I'm coming. Hold on. Don't you know what time it is? It's Peter's old boss, Jonah Jameson. Jameson rambles for a moment before Peter silently shuts the door in Jameson's face. We have big things to talk about. Big things. Peter begins to sob as he curls up in a ball. Jameson left Peter with a parting gift, a package he'd been holding on to for a very long time. As Jameson takes to the streets, he hurls insults at RAIN officers. Monkey! Liars! Villains! At the same time, Peter slowly opens the package. He begins to feel something he doesn't feel much anymore: Spidey sense. On the street, Jameson begins to bash cars with his walker to incite the officers. They approach him, and he raises his fists. As Peter sees what Jameson left him, he begins to cry. Jameson is beat down as he shouts for Peter. I'm sorry. So sorry. The RAIN officers think he's talking to them, but he's not. I'm sorry for all of it, my boy. We have so much to talk about. The guards turn around. It's Spider-Man. Wearing nothing but his underwear and the black mask Jameson left him, Spidey's here to save the day. The guards rush toward him. Wearing masks is illegal in this city. Spidey leaps above them, tossing one to the ground with ease. "We chased your kind out of this city a long time ago." The officer pulls a gun and fires. Spidey easily dodges it, responding with an uppercut. As Peter beats the guards, his mind drifts back to a better time. He imagines himself battling villains in his old red and blue costume. When the fight's over, Jameson admits that when it came to Spider-Man, Jameson didn't tell the truth. But now, they need to set their differences aside. "I need you. The city needs you." Peter ignores the plea. He does something he's probably waited decades to do. He punches Jameson right in his big mouth. Back in Mayor Waters' office, they mobilize all units to deal with the spider problem. Waters' aide, Mr. Sachs, has a solution. "To catch the spider, you must first release some flies." Sachs takes Waters down to the vault, the prison built directly below City Hall. "They're looking for you. You are responsible for this city, and with great responsibility comes great power." Sachs guides Waters through the prison, where they're met with several looming silhouettes. "Sachs, who are these creatures?" "Volunteers. Sinners looking for salvation. Your angels." Out on the streets, the same girl who shouted at Peter earlier reads an illegal newspaper Jameson distributed. Peter made the front page, sporting his black mask. "So this is what he looks like, huh? I thought his mask was red." Suddenly, an officer snatches the paper from her hand and smacks her to the ground. "Stupid jerks! This is a free country!" "You really think so?" It's a young boy named Casey who says he's been watching this girl, Susie. Casey tells Susie that there are a few people meeting up, people she'd like to meet. Susie follows Casey into the dark alley. Back in Peter's apartment, he rushes to pack up and leave. He made a mistake putting on that mask. His vision of Mary Jane returns, standing at the window and staring into the streets below. Out on the streets, Susie struggles to keep up with Casey. She lost him, now wandering around in a back alleyway. Suddenly, she hears an old man's voice through a large church door. "The heavens are black and soot. They've forced us underground." Susie goes inside and sees the speaker, Jameson. "You want safety? You want security? You don't look for someone else. You look inside." Susie spots Casey curled over a laptop. They wave. "Casey, it's time to hack into the network. It's time to raise your voice." Casey obeys Jameson, clicking the laptop. Suddenly, every TV in the city changes to a screaming Jameson. "Liars! Thieves and liars! All of them!" An image appears on every screen in the city. Spider-Man. The screen reads, "Civilian hides masked man," along with Peter's address. A few of the older civilians are shocked. Is it really him? Is this Spider-Man? People begin to gather in the street. Rain officers appear to break it up. Suddenly, an old man in a white outfit starts playing a boombox. In front of everyone, the masked man begins to dance. "Gather round, people. You gotta start shaking the change out of those pockets." Suddenly, the guards can't help it. They begin to dance. "Ha! I'm back! The Hypno Hustler has returned, and tonight, the whole city's gonna dance." But then, the Hypno Hustler's boombox dies. The guards stop their forced dancing and raise their guns. Jameson puts his hand on Susie's shoulder and forces her to watch. "You're about to learn something." The Hypno Hustler is shot dead in the street by a dozen officers. Back in Peter's apartment, he's fully shaved and ready to hit the road. Canada, maybe. After all, if Jameson knows his secret, who else does? He turns to the hallucination of Mary Jane. "I won't leave you again." But she doesn't move from her post at the window. Peter walks over to see where she's staring. Oh. Peter sees the commotion. Rain guards standing over the Hypno Hustler's dead body. Suddenly, one of the officers raises a missile launcher right at his window. As the missile comes speeding toward him, he catches a glimpse of Mary Jane smiling. The first time he'd seen that in 30 years. Everything goes white, but old habits die hard. Without even thinking, he suits up. Peter emerges from the explosion in full costume, black suit, head to toe. Spider-Man soars down to the streets, taking out every guard he can catch, cracking constant jokes while he's at it. Jameson makes sure to keep the cameras rolling, so the entire city can watch their savior return. 30 years since the city's seen anything like it. Casey is struggling to keep the hack up, when suddenly, he's stabbed through the back. It's Kraven the Hunter, leading a militia of supervillains released by Mayor Waters. Electro turns to Spider-Man and lights him up with a blast of electricity. "Been a while, webhead!" Spidey is smashed by Sandman. Kraven goes in for the kill. Show them, Parker." But Peter is helpless. Craven beats him mercilessly in front of the crowd, then tears off his mask. The crowd gasps. This is their hero? An old man? But suddenly, Spidey is saved. Mechanical arms come out of nowhere to beat the villains. Doc Ock grabs Spider-Man and takes him away. That night, right as the web goes into effect, Doc Ock drops Peter at his destination and leaves without a word. Peter looks up. He's laying at Mary Jane's grave. Doc Ock is a husk, a walking corpse. After giving his classic villain speech, he drops a casket onto Peter. It's Mary Jane's dead body. Suddenly, Peter begins to flash back to the past. Mary Jane was lying on her deathbed. Peter heard sirens in the distance and suited up to save the day, as he always does. He promised to bring her back flowers. That was the last time he ever saw her alive. The doctors never understood how her body became irradiated, what was causing her cancer. I did. I am filled with radioactive blood. Peter continues to sob as he gets way too close to her rotting corpse. Loving me killed you. Before he can get real closure, Doc Ock tears her body away and flees. With no other recourse, Peter crawls into Mary Jane's coffin. I'm going home. It seems our hero has given up. He sits in dark silence for a moment, shedding a tear for his long-lost wife. But the city needs a savior. That day she died, I didn't just bury her. Suddenly, a fist crashes through the coffin. I buried the red and blue. I buried my true self. Spider-Man emerges from the earth, ready to stand up and fight. Here comes the Spider-Man!